Okay, so let's get started. I just wanted to talk really quickly about some color stuff. So creating like regions of color that discern between regions of light. So when you have an area that is dominated by a light source and you have an area that is a whole new atmosphere, for instance, the difference between the, sorry if you hear cooking in the background, Abu Master Chef is beating the crap out of some vegetables in the background. But anyway, the whole underwater world and has its own way of dealing with light, and because of that has its own way of processing color. So what you've done here is that you've used some of the color from the light source on the skin closest to the surface, and that's fine. But what's happening is that everything else seems to not be matching any specific color scheme. It's like you had set values for the dragon or the sea creature and set values for the underwater world, and none of them are combining. The underwater world comes first, and we have to make the color of the underwater world almost a completely new environment, almost an opposing environment to what we see above water. So what I'm doing is I'm throwing a bunch of blue, and I'm gonna just exaggerate the blue even more the further away from the light source we get. So this region is starting to get more and more cold and less close to the water. Also, your light source color is green, which is dark. Green is dark. Green is a dark value. It can be light. Green can definitely be light, but it can be very, very dark as well. And the way you've pushed this green in is, it's not in a no man's land value. It's in a pretty, I call it like a light gray, a whitest gray, before it becomes just pure white. Light source needs to be pure white, and the only color that can sit that high is yellow. So either it's a ghoulish Disney green, where, you know, the villain green that I always talk about. If you don't know what that is, just Google Disney green villain, and you'll see how much they use that. But see how this color correction alone, yeah, we lost some of the color of the sea creature, and I can bring that back. But we now have this specific region, the world of the water and what light does there, and the world above water and what light does there. See that? Well, thank you everyone for the birthday wishes. Thank you so much. Okay, and then what we're going to do next is give the light source its own little environment. Okay, and so above here, I'm going to go into like soft light maybe. Maybe I will just select this entire area. Actually, that's exactly what I'll do. Okay, and I'm going to desaturate it. When you desaturate it, you can actually start getting that desaturation that happens with color. And what I'm going to do after that is raise it up. Okay, so merge down, sponge, undesaturate. I'm just going to spot desaturate here and there. And what this is for is that light is yellow-white, more white than yellow. Light is more white than yellow, but it still has some yellow in it, so write that back to me. And what that does, again, is that it desaturates all the values around. And then I'm going to choose a hot spot for the light source, wherever the light source is sitting highest. And that's where I will bring in that brightest bright. And I'm just going to grab a pure white and create some of that blue. Okay, so now we have this really, really nice distinction between these two universes. I'm comparing it to before. And I would desaturate even more. In fact, I should have also, before I deselected, I should have also changed the color hue to be a bit more towards pale, so pale blue, so the whole image matches a little bit. And then go back to that white and just paint it on top. Alright, so another thing that might be a problem is the fact that you have a very awkward little cutout here what you want to do is look up references of people who are just half submerged and their camera's half submerged in the water, and see what happens to the water. Does the water really have a clean cut like that? Does it have like layers? But before, see how murky and dark and ghoulish that green is? And after, things are a little bit more white, a little bit, have a stronger haze. Okay. So any questions at all about these different regions? One big question that I always get is, what do I do with my colors that are underwater, that are filtered through the filter of the world of the water? So if the water is blue, what happens to my reds? Well, you cool down your reds. There's a cool version of red. So let's go through all the colors if they were through a blue filter. Cool version of red. The purple just gets to do its thing. Maybe it'll be a bit more blue version of purple. Blues get to do whatever they want. A more blue version of green. Zero yellow. There will be zero yellow. The yellow will be canceled out by the blue, especially the orange in the yellow. There will be a greenish yellow. There might be a greenish yellow left over because green allows some blue through. And because green allows blue through, it might allow a greenish version of yellow, but it's not really yellow. It's just a green, yellow-green that looks yellow compared to everything else around it. But it'll be more white. All yellows and all oranges turn a little bit more white. And then oranges that are really orange become more red. So every color filter, you have to go through this. Every color filter. What if the color filter was red? What would happen to all the colors? The most important color to look out for is the complementary color of the filter. If the filter just means the wash, the color of the environment. If the filter is red, if the filter is yellow, if the filter, you have to find the opposite color. The opposite color of red is the green, so make sure that all your greens are dimmed a little bit more blue, because blue and red get along. Blue and green, not necessarily. They might cancel each other out or gray out, depending on which one is the dominant color. If it's just a red shirt if it's a green shirt in a red environment, the green will be the secondary color and red will be the dominant wash. So wherever color we have more of, that's the color that defeats the other one and grays the other one out. Okay, but you still get some of the color out because the complementary is still fighting back just a little bit. But what would happen to the green shirt is it would dim a little bit more, become a little bit more yellow. Okay, so all of these colors, what I'm doing here is I'm erasing into the before, because you had like a bioluminescence here on the little things. So I'm just taking care of those. Another really, really important thing that'll make this creature feel really, really cool is if you darkened towards the bottom. If you darken towards the bottom so that the bioluminescence becomes a little bit more obvious. Okay, and again, I'm just really, really erasing away so that all those little spots come through. Further, we're getting a pretty large scope, a pretty zoomed out kind of cross section of the world of the lake. So that means that we'll get a lot of transition. We'll get this really, really strong transition. As for the green altogether, just this green that you started out with, this just default green, the whole picture, I'm just going to just push it towards the blues. Because there will still be a lot of green left behind, because we have a cutout here of the previous layer. So I'm leaving some green behind. But you gotta push into those blues. Water just doesn't really do that. Let me actually merge down and then cut and paste. Again, there will still be some green left over. See how long it takes for this green to move? Keep your eye out for this area. So you have some green there and then some blue towards the bottom. You just can't have green everywhere, because green everywhere means either the water itself is green, or it's just like a green environment up above the water, which is mist or like some kind of dangerous environment where there's monsters that are undesirable, or it's like a really, really bad unsafe zone. That's usually when we use that green, that really desaturated ghoulish green. What else? That green could mean lack of life. It's a very zombie green. So only like dead area or a swamp, like think of the elephant graveyard in Lion King. I think that's like, it's just a pretty fixed color. I've talked about this green a lot. It's not really a green we would use for a creature interacting with a butterfly. Also, the butterfly is such a prevalent part of your design. I'm surprised you didn't give it any interesting color. You gave it just a plain white or an environment color like that. And that's really made the butterfly feel a little bit unimportant. So I'm just going to throw in some blue on top of the butterfly. Just like that, just to unify the image a little bit. You can change this color to whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Those rocks in the distance, again, show a loss of life or a lack of life in the environment. They really aren't doing much for the scene. If you want to, you can throw some lily pads. Anything that'll just attach life back on. So any kind of lily pad, maybe it's a really big lily pond. Another really important factor here is that the distance here, you have a lot of space to add one more little unit in the distance that might help with the framing. So if it's just so much is going on up here that it feels like you're not really framing the composition properly, considering that it's such a long canvas, but let's just say that's okay. I'm throwing in a really, really just a delicate presence here of a distant rock. Just like that, assessing the navigator. Whenever I take a pause and you guys are watching me and I'm just pausing, that's me looking at the navigator. Or when my sentence tracks away, that's me just assessing the navigator. I'm adding a little bit of fog at the base of the distant rock. See that? Just a little bit, and it did so much for the composition. It kind of just filled that area up. I haven't added the texture that you've added, this very bouldery texture. I'd be very, very, very careful with that. Still, like the region up here, the world of above water, just cannot be that green. I've talked about this before. Quest for Camelot, the Dragon Country, very, very specifically green. I'm pushing that towards the blues a little bit more. It just helps create the distinction between the underwater world. The subsurface scattering down here becomes very, very obvious and beautiful. So I'm just going to select this and track back and erase away what I don't want. So I know we want this guy to be a bit more green because his color is green. I want this to be blue. I want the skies to be a bit, see, even the sky color was green. I'm going to make the sky color a little bit more of a turquoise at least. And the atmospheric fade color in the top was green, saying that there was a green fog. So green, 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 but happy dragon, sweet little dragon interacting with a butterfly. Something's not right. When we're using this much green, we're showing the audience, hey, this is a dangerous area. This is something here is going to happen that is not desirable. All right, and that same fog on the base of that distance area, I'm just going to add it just a little bit so that an awkward seam between rock and water doesn't feel like it's rock and sand. Water is very, very pliable against a harder surface. Now I'm just going to bring in some of those glimmers, distinct water glimmers. Wherever the water is sitting, we have a lot of these glimmers. You can lasso them in. All right, I'm just going to grab my white. Really, really nice little touch. It's okay if it looks awkward and hard. All you got to do is blur away. You can also smudge away at the water ripples. Blues do what they want. They are like cats. Write that back to Happy birthday, Art Empress. Thank you, thank you. I'm not sure about Art Empress. Yeah, you're actually right on time. I started a little bit early today. And then again, I'm just pushing this here. As for the subsurface scattering color, so let's say you have a bit of jade, something that is that naturally occurs as green. that is also translucent. You have a light source that's yellow, and you have an environment that's a little bit blue. So that yellow and that green kind of mix together, and you have a lot of yellow in the mixture. So what we got to do is do a little bit of that. Then there's the color wash. So the jade itself might not be pure green, it might be a turquoise. So some of that blue will come through as well. So I'm going to grab some of this blue and just move myself into a turquoise and throw some of that color. Where are you? Throw some of that color right over here. See that little turquoise? Look at that subsurface scattering. Alright, and then one more atmospheric filter distinction here is all of this detail that you got going on needs to be checked. Alright, so it's okay. This is a lot of haze that I'm adding. It's okay. It's not going to be that much. I'm just adding a slight little filter of just particles and whatnot. The thing is, most of the dragon is underwater, so we can't do all of this. If most of the dragon was above water, then we wouldn't be losing any composition or the value of the dragon. But you see, technically, this is exactly what it's supposed to look like, technically. And we can erase away at every little light here. Technically, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing with the dragon, with the water dragon thing. Alright, so I'm just erasing away at the lights, just so you can see the benefit of the realism behind filtering everything under these water particles and the what do you call it? The mist of the water? It's like this muck or mush. I'm not sure if Tommy is here. And then right above the top of the dragon, I'm just going to add a little bit of that water. Right towards the top, moving up. Alright, so technically this is what it's supposed to be. This is what looks right. But because you didn't frame this properly, I'll put this much. Okay, and then you can mess around. Murky, thank you so much. Yes, murky, exactly. Alright, as for the design of the dragon, you don't really have a lot of opportunity for color. Excuse me. You have, usually I see like the fins have the most color. So it would be cool if you brought in some color on the on these fins, because I mean, if he's a dominant predator in the water, he's not going to try to camouflage. He doesn't need to. And if he has all these little lights here that attract animals towards him, again, he doesn't need to camouflage. So we don't need fins that are the same color. See how much more complete the design feels when we have purple everywhere? I think it's because I started early. Tommy might not be with us today. Okay, so see how more colorful everything feels? And I'm just going to go back and delete it where I did this messily. There. Oops, that's not where I meant it. Alright, and it gets more colorful towards the top, so I'll double this layer over. Oh shit, no, that's not how I did it. I'll just use the sponge tool. I thought I did it in a separate layer so I could double it. So saturate. Shoot. And then this little purple here, this cool secondary light, I'm just going to carry that up into the chest. Okay, and then right towards the bottom, just to keep things interesting and have something interesting happening here, I'm going to illuminate all these little lights. Yeah. Okay. just like so. Little rainbow scales. That sounds interesting. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And I believe that is it for now. I would be really interested in seeing some illumination down here. See that? Just a little bit of light like got through, still lingering under the water. That always adds a little bit of interest. Some particles would be great, and some life up here like grass or lily pads to add to the cuteness, add to the appeal of the story you're telling. Every illustration starts with a story. Write that back, and what you're saying about the story has to reflect how you've delivered this. Has to reflect the story. So what you were intending for the audience to read has to be carried in through the colors you use. So if you're at a point where you're illustrating every single scale, but you don't know the power of this kind of green in an environment, something's inconsistent. Something is not working. You know a lot of technical stuff, but you don't know design rules. You don't know what green does, and you got to look out for it. I mean, we've all watched Disney movies. We all grew up with Disney movies. I've been programmed to not like this green because it's so popularly used to represent a devil or represent a bad guy. Let me just find you the meme. Actually, I have it on Discord. Tyden sent it to me. So let me find him. So any questions at all about this? I really gotta show you guys this. Come on. I don't know if he sent it to me. I don't think I can find it. I'm going to give it 2 more seconds. 1, 2, yeah, I can't find it, so I'm going to Google it. Meme Disney green images. Okay, there we go, found it right away. Disney, everything surrounded by lime green is evil. Okay? And Disney's just dominated this field, and it's not just that, because take a look at this. It's not just about Disney alone determining this color. It's that, and this is the exact color you use, man. It's the fact that even back then in the 60s, when they were, I don't know, 70s, 60s, when Sleeping Beauty came out, it took them a long time to make it, probably like 15 years to animate it, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that, something, a substantial amount of time. And it was something that was used everywhere else, like I don't know if this, yeah, Black Cauldron is Disney. There was another animated short or something, I forget, really, really old, that had a lot of that green in it. Maybe it was The Thief and the Cobbler or something. But it doesn't matter. It's there. It's set in stone, and it's the rule. All right? So there's green everywhere, and these are the rules. If you use this green, you're just, and it's an ugly color in and of itself. Lime green, you can't do much with it. There's not much you can do with it. It's not friendly and saturated enough to be a happy color. It's an ugly poopy color, and it's the color of a lot of excrement. It's also the color of a very, very pale green, not a particularly nature green, but it can be a nature green. But standalone, it's a very pastel, desaturated value. It's not something we use for a happy scene. So be careful with this green, all right? So the rules of color, we still have a lot of green left over. It feels very watery. It's dark where it needs to be, complementing the parts of the creature that you added as bioluminescent. Dark towards the bottom, light towards the top. The light towards the top is moving towards a more white color, very basic sky color against the blue, reflecting the sky, which is more, less green, more blue. But you had that green traveling everywhere, and you're probably wondering why it wasn't getting a read, why it felt flat, because you had no distinction between the light dominated color region and the water dominated color region. Water evolves into a whole new light, evolves into a whole new type of light underwater. There's a lot of elements that the water brings out, that the light brings out of the water. For instance, like algae or just murkiness, as someone said. So If it's green anywhere, it's green underwater. It can't be green above water because you're saying that there's this like volcanic dragon country type of miasma fog above. And yes, it could be that you're telling the story of a sweet little dragon living in a shithole who found something beautiful in a moment of beauty. But you don't have enough environment for me to read shithole. You have so much you have so much of the dragon and less of the environment. It doesn't feel like you're describing something where, one beautiful creature among many horrible creatures. It doesn't feel like that's what you're setting up, because there isn't enough environment for you to establish the environment as being dangerous, and the creature being the only beautiful thing in there. Seeing one beautiful butterfly that wandered into something dangerous, and he's just going to help it. Okay? So Mango, would the scales be a little more reflective where the light is hitting them? Yes, they would. So you can choose some of these scales. You can choose some of them. So I like this like focused on one that we're doing here. So you can choose some of these scales to be, actually all I can do is just lasso. So it's not all the scales. Just choose the ones that you feel like face the light source more directly, and those are the ones that just get a little bit of dodge tool. So like that. And that's all you really need. And choose if this is what this scale does and it's green. There might be a couple scales that do this, but in purple. So some of them might actually be purple. Okay, so you can do something like that. Be careful how bright you go. It's not a crazy it doesn't need crazy highlights for it to work. Just a little bit here and there. Select like 15 more across. Wherever anything faces some light, you can select some, and that'll be it. Focus more on the scales that are actually above water facing the light source. That looks very, very good. Joker's green hair, man, how much more obvious could it be? Yeah, Joker's green hair and the green mist that the Joker causes when his laughing gas. Joker laughing gas. Wasn't that also green? I could swear that gas was green. I'm trying to find it. Oh, yes it is, I believe. Don't remember. But Joker's laughing gas. Joker gas. Yeah, I believe it was green. See that? Yeah. Be very, very careful with this green. Okay. I think I got the message out. Blight from Batman Beyond. Yeah. Alright, so I'm just going to flatten the image. I hope this was helpful for you. Quick color talk today. Nothing too focused on like rendering and form or anything like that. Okay, this one. I'm not sure if you plan this or not, but the composition feels very, very off. She feels too large for the canvas. Also, the camera seems very low, but she seems to be level with the camera. So I would want to see her tilted back all the way. So the difference between this, this, and let's say this, okay? So what we would want to see is like just the fact that one shoulder is in front of the neck. We see more of the lower part of the neck. We see the head tilted back a bit further. We see the far eye under the nose. We see more of a low ponytail than a high ponytail. A very, very masculine head, by the way. We see more of the shirt towards the bottom, so less of the chest area. We see the collarbones in front of the chest. We see more of the arm, the lower part of the arm. This whole region is smaller, it shrinks. This whole region's a bit bigger. I'm also not sure what you're doing with the knee here. The knee would be facing forward, but you've kind of bent the leg this way. The leg would be facing forward, I believe, a little bit more. You have all these guys. Everything seems to be in a stage beside each other. All right, this is very boring. Not only is she too big, so you have one big object and two small objects. It's pretty much what I'm reading. What you have to do is have her positioned in a spot where, let's just say she's, doing her little lean back. You got a net kind of taking over one part of the canvas, and you've got these guys, some in the foreground eating away at the fish, some in the background catching some fish, and some fish here and there. So you have levels of depth. You have the fish in the background, the bird in the foreground, you have her who's not necessarily centered, you have a really nice gesture from the net. This is what thumbnailing is all about, and you're not really doing that. You just put unit, 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 bad perspective, and then the anatomy is just a little bit off. Also, this cute little guy, you could have, I think it's called the stern right at the front. So this could have been the stage. This could have been the guy with the glasses, really happy. He's at the front. He thinks he's the captain. This would have been her, and, just chilling. And then you have fish, a bird with fish, and then bird fishing for the fish or looking for it. A couple more like splashes here and there, and then you can frame. And then readjust for composition. So you didn't really think out the units. You thought more in color. You thought more in like the spirit of the inspiration, and you jumped right into render. If you did have a composition planning, the furthest things in the distance wouldn't be the boats. It wouldn't be the waves. And if the waves are that intense, why is the boat so level, like it's on still water? I would love to see the boat kind of like crazily tilted. Then you have the net. Then you have her kind of holding on for dear life, but also crazy adventurous, chest all the way out, really proud. This chest is very flat, leaning back a little bit, like she's like, whoa, everything's being thrown over. And then you got this little guy here in the foreground. Then you've got one guy catching a fish, a couple more here and there, and that would have been a bit more of a dynamic experience. A bit of a wave there behind her just to complete the image, and not so much sharpness on the clouds. I know you're trying to be artistic and fun with the clouds. You probably have an artist you're trying to imitate, but the clouds are front and center in saturation as well as sharpness. They shouldn't be. The clouds are competing for attention right now. Things are seeming just a little bit busy, even though you haven't really layered in depth. And those are my thoughts on this piece. As for this one, I think what you were going for is light shining in through the leaves, and it's really nice. You have a really nice clean setup over here. I'm going to make things a bit more blue and dim. Okay. Take a step back and then bring down the opacity so things are a bit more blue, and then merge down. And then what we do is just choose some areas, make sure they contour on top of the face. And these are the moments of the grass that get through the leaves, the light that gets through the leaves. But there is still the rim of the leaves themselves, like this full on, like the edge of the leaves. Unless she's in like a really deep thicket, but then there wouldn't really be moments of light shining through if the thicket is so deep. So what I'm going to do now is going to be a little bit freaky at first, but you'll see. Soft light. Alright, I'm just going to add a bit more. Okay, and then if she's wearing black, she's just wearing black. Oops. Okay, so this little bluish environment here against this really, really bright setup, and then filter, blur, gauge, and blur. Alright, so what we're trying to do constantly is make this as separate as a region as possible from each other. Again, we're creating regions of light. So where there is no light, we're giving it its own units, its own colors, its own life. And where there is light, we're adding Control J. Another whole new unit, another whole world where there's more white, off-white yellow, off-yellow white. As soon as we bring that yellow in, we notice the coolness of the world around it. So there's it's a very tricky business, but what you have to do is saturate a kind of gold ring around. I'm just using really bad patterns here. You could have chosen very different, better patterns. I'm going to keep it hazy because it's kind of a dark environment. So I don't think light would really come through that well. I'm also going to darken wherever we get closer to thickets, anything like that. And these would be the moments in the light. And then what we're doing is saturating. A little rim of saturation around every component. And some of these can have different levels of sharpness. Some are closer. Maybe the light is more of a laser in certain areas. But this little rim here of saturation I'm doing with my sponge tool is really very important. Also not with my sponge tool, with my, I'm going to get my sponge tool and desaturate so I can get rid of some of the damage caused by dodge. Alright, so to talk more about what colors are visible, just like we did with the dragon, which colors are visible in the darker realm. So we're just going to select this color right here in the color picker and just move along the color. I'm not moving up and down along the value because we've already set the limit for the value. This wash has already decided the lips are going to be this dark. All I'm doing is just adding saturation and a little bit of color to the lips because the lips look a little bit dead, or like smoker lips. So I'm just adding a little bit of redness, and the redness is just going to be exaggerated towards the center of the lips, just like that. Same thing around the blush areas of the mouth, of the cheeks, sorry. I'm just going to add a bit of, just a tiny bit of like this off-white, purpley kind of pastel value for anywhere where there is just a bit of hydration, a bit of wetness. Her face looked very, very porcelain. Not even porcelain, because porcelain does have a bit of shine. Alright, so the patterns I chose are terrible. You could have chosen way better patterns. You can choose a reference to work from. I chose some really crappy patterns here. I can't smudge enough with my blur tool. I'd have to just go back into Gaussian. Okay, so putting my darken, just creating some outlines here. Oh, I'm still on deselect. Just a bit more shape. All right, so any questions at all about this one? Istebrak, is depending on a perspective grid bad for setting up a good composition? No, not at all. Not at all. Also, it's like saying, is using a ruler bad for architecture? It's like, no, it's a tool that you depend on that will keep the structural integrity of what you're designing intact. It's done. I mean, I don't know, if we had an apparatus that grew out of our bodies that was perfectly straight that we could use, then we'd not have an excuse, and we can't say we're cheating anymore because naturally occurring ruler grew out of our bodies. But it's just like, why does it have to go that far for us to stop thinking we're cheating when we're using a valid tool for something mechanical, which we are not? I mean, we are not built to make perfect straight lines, and we don't have parts that are perfectly straight that we can use as the excuse. So please use rulers, use whatever the heck you have to use. Her features are looking very soft and without structure. How would one fix that? So a little bit of flaw goes a long way. So I'm going to add a little bit of an eye bag just under here. A little bit of flaw goes a long way. Asymmetry also goes a long way. And then a squint in another eye. Just a little bit. One lip smiling, one not. See that? How much more alive her face looks, like she's thinking, she's smart, she can defend herself. but she's also got a massive amount of innocence to her, and you don't know what's happening with the story. Just a little bit of asymmetry goes a long way. Very plain, not feeling anything, and this with a little bit of darkness to her. All right? Also, it's that whole pupil business. The pupil being way too large. I mean, the iris, sorry. The iris being way too large. That's problematic. A lot of you guys are not getting the message. Shrink your irises. I know it looks cute, but we're seeing less of the white of the eye, and it's getting very, very difficult to feel related to your art, because the person who drew this, Kai, someone just said her features are looking very soft and without structure. They're not feeling a human coming out of this picture. They're just feeling whatever it is that you laid on and forced into it with this anime hybrid. And I know you're going for realistic, so shrink the irises just a little bit. It'll really help us meet her. It'll really help us get to know her. Okay? So that's it for today. Again, I'm so sorry for starting so early without warning. But really, really good news. The MAC release is looking wonderful. We have also recently invested in some really, really diverse environment assets for Portrait Studio. So we're talking like leaves, we're talking about tree structures, lava structures, water structures, and also there will be a slider very, very soon for transparency. So a transparency slider. So if you want a transparency condition applied to any object or multiple objects that you have, you now have that. Or you will have that, God willing, if Abu can find some time to figure it out. Just lots and lots of really, really awesome updates coming up. I have aborted mission on the original intent for the trailer. I've just nixed that. Abu's going to be making one. A trailer / tutorial on how to use Portrait Studio. Just a simple walkthrough that you guys can watch so you can maximize your use with Portrait Studio and be able to create the kind of environments Abu can create, because he knows it in and out. And I said, who better than to teach people how to make the best environment scene other than Abu, who is pretty much it's his baby. What else? So yeah, that's it. And I will see you guys on Thursday. I might not have class on the 5th because of like a July 4th bonanza party thingy. I might just do it. I don't know. But Tuesday, again, I might not on Tuesday either. Or Tuesday, I might end up streaming at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So I might have to Tuesday and Thursday, the 3rd and the 5th, classes at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Only because of the summer. And everyone wants to do stuff in the evening rather than the day. And yeah, that's it. I will see you guys on, it's not Thursday, today's Thursday. I will see you guys on Tuesday, the 3rd, at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, guys? I'll put the announcement now so that everyone can be aware that it will be at 4 p.m. All right, bye, guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm so sorry for the rushed class and the early start. Again, I'm so sorry. See you guys.